Welcome back to Multiversal Studios. I'm gonna stop you right there.
Time to stop, okay?
If you've clicked on this video without watching this video, then it won't make much sense to you. So go watch that video and come back. I'll leave a link to the first part in the comments down below. So have you seen it? Okay, cool, we can move on. But before we do, you know the drill. Make sure you like and subscribe. So just to confirm, the finals of the Battle City tournament consisted of Weevil Underwood versus Seto Kaiba, My Valentine versus Marik Ishtar, Ishizu versus Espa Roba, and finally Odeon versus Bakura. The first match was Seto versus Weevil, and to everyone's surprise, the duels were hosted at the top of the blimp. Now I know this duel seems like it would be easy, and I don't blame you. It's Seto Kaiba versus Weevil. But for those who underestimate Weevil, they are usually the ones who fall victim to his traps.
Say goodbye to Exodius!
Weevil had done some research on Seto Kaiba. However, for Seto, Weevil was irrelevant and merely a stepping stone in achieving his goal of attaining all 3 Egyptian god cards. However, Weevil was at a little bit of a disadvantage, being paired up against Seto Kaiba in round 1. Weevil was used to underhanded tactics when facing opponents. However, since Weevil was the first one to duel, he didn't have time to prepare, apart from the little research he did on all the finalists. He also had a strategy where he would hire someone to tamper with the opponent's deck. However, since Weevil was alone and on a blimp, he was limited in his options. Weevil also liked to find a way to mentally mess with his opponents. However, Kaiba was like a steel wall.
After I'm done dueling you, all I'm going to be calling you is loser.
It seemed like Weevil would have to rely on his deck and dueling skills. However, Weevil was still a formidable duelist, and his deck has been boosted a lot due to this tournament. And if all else fails, Weevil had a nasty surprise for Kaiba waiting in his deck, as well as a plan B. Now the duel started with Kaiba casually drawing all 3 blue eyes and his polymerization, summoning the blue eyes ultimate dragon.
I play the magic card, Polymerization! This lets me fuse the 2 blue eyes in my hand with the one I have on the field! Show yourself, Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon!
Now Weevil was startled at first, however his smug expression returned. Weevil knew that Kaiba relied on his blue eyes above all else, and the blue eyes were dragons. Now Weevil may not have had much time to prepare, but he did have time to add in something sneaky to surprise Kaiba: the Dragon Capture Jar trap card. Now in the anime, this card actually stole any dragon on board, and Weevil's target was the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon.
Oh, Dragon Capture Jar!
Weevil looked at Kaiba with a gleeful expression, gloating at how easily Kaiba had fallen for his trap. However, Kaiba's expression remained unchanged. Kaiba activated his trap card, Interdimensional Matter Transporter. This trap allows Seto to protect the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon from being captured that turn. Weevil was devastated and desperately attempted other strategies. He tried to lock Seto Kaiba into only insect monsters with his DNA surgery and insect barrier combo. However, each time Seto broke through effortlessly. Weevil's Insect Queen was shredded to pieces by the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon.
What have you done to my queen?
It wasn't looking good for Weevil, and Weevil knew if nothing was done, he would lose this duel. It was time for plan B. With a smug laugh, Weevil reached into his jacket pocket, and what Weevil brought out surprised everyone apart from Ishizu, who looked as if she was watching history unfold, exactly according to a Millennium necklace. Weevil had the final piece of the Millennium puzzle in his hands.
Another one bites the dust!
It turned out Weevil had run into one of the rare hunters and defeated them and took one piece of the puzzle. Weevil's sources had told him that Seto was collecting them, so initially he was going to use the piece to blackmail Seto into allowing him into the finals. However, now he had another purpose. Weevil threatened to throw the final piece off the blimp if Kaiba didn't surrender. However, Weevil had made a few mistakes with this strategy. The first was overestimating how much Seto Kaiba cared for the puzzle piece. Don't get me wrong, it was bothersome, as it did mean that Seto Kaiba wouldn't be able to get the Winged Dragon of Ra from Ishizu. However, Seto Kaiba would be just as happy beating Ishizu in a duel and taking the god card by force. The second factor Weevil didn't consider was the fact that there were other people on this blimp who needed that piece and had access to dark and powerful magic, like Ishizu. Seto didn't hesitate.
Kaiba, I've never backed away, and I'm not starting now!
As soon as Weevil attempted to blackmail Seto, the first thing Seto did was declare a direct attack with his Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Weevil at this point knew he was going to lose, and with an act of pettiness, decided to throw the piece of the puzzle off the blimp anyway. However, he soon realized that he couldn't move his arm, and shortly afterwards realized that he couldn't move any part of his body. To the right side of him, he felt a bright burning light coming from Ishizu's Millennium Necklace, and in front of him, he saw a giant neutron blast coming directly for him.
Back now, Ultimate Dragon! Neutron Blast! Again?
As soon as Weevil's life points hit 0, his soul left his body, and Weevil was sent to the Shadow Realm by the power of Ishizu's Millennium Necklace. The last piece of the Millennium Puzzle fell safely to the ground next to Weevil's lifeless body. There was a total of 33 pieces of the Millennium Puzzle, and Seto now had 30. Ishizu and Odeon had 2 pieces between them. All Seto had to do is defeat Ishizu's younger brother Marik and take his puzzle piece, and if Ishizu stuck to a deal, Seto would get his hands on the Winged Dragon of Ra. The next matchup was My Valentine versus Marik Ishtar. Seto was watching intently from the sidelines in order to discover which god card Marik had in his deck. Seto could tell he was an exceptional duelist. He managed to lock Mai into a cycle of chain burn spell cards, which would deal damage to Mai's life points each turn, whilst also simultaneously protecting his own life points with Revival Jam and the Jam Defender combo. Seto was disappointed that he didn't get to see an Egyptian god card, however the duel was pretty entertaining. The clash of 2 very skilled duelists. However, in the end, Marik was the victor. The duel that followed was Ishizu versus Espa Roba. Now, Espa Roba was in a similar position to Weevil in their duel, as he relied on his brothers to cheat and spy on his opponent's hands. However, due to the platform being elevated and there being security all over the dueling arena, there was limited visibility for them to help him. However, that didn't stop Espa Roba from pretending like he could see into the future.
Celestial Force, I call upon you! Make me one with the psychic universe! Show Joey's thoughts to me, and every card in his pathetic hand!
This made Ishizu smile, and she told him that she could also see into the future, and that she could see him not last a single turn. Espa Roba started the duel by summoning Cyber Raider in attack mode, and he set 1 card face down. Ishizu smiled again with an eerie confidence and drew from her deck. A purple fog enveloped the field, emanating from the Millennium Necklace. Espa Roba had no idea what kind of duel he had gotten involved in, as this was a shadow game. Ishizu started her turn by activating card destruction. This sends both her hand and her opponent's hand to the graveyard, and it allows both players to redraw from the deck. She then proceeds to activate Monster Reborn, summoning back the Winged Dragon of Ra that she had discarded from her hand. Seto was blown away by its might. You could feel the heat coming from the god card. However, to everyone's surprise, the god card has 0 attack. Espa Roba looked like he was going to pass out. Ishizu then offered her own life force into Ra, boosting its attack and leaving her with only 100 life points left, and dealt a devastating attack against Espa Roba. He still had a few life points left, but that was never Ishizu's goal. The shadow game meant every time a monster was destroyed, the damage was taken by the user as physical pain. However, coming from a god card, the damage was amplified by 10. Espa Roba screamed in pain as his little brothers watched their idol fall in front of their eyes. Smoke emanated from his body, and Espa Roba fell to his knees. His eyes were open, but no life could be seen within them. Even though he still had life points remaining, Espa Roba was no longer conscious, and his soul was sent to the Shadow Realm. Seto was amazed by the power of the Winged Dragon of Ra, which managed to win in 1 turn. This card had to be his. The last duel was Odeon versus Bakura. This was another duel Seto was interested in, to see if Odeon had the 3rd Egyptian god card in his deck. However, Odeon played a solid trap deck, which probably caught Bakura by surprise. Bakura, however, was close to winning with his Destiny Board strategy, but before he could, Odeon summoned the Egyptian god card which resided in his deck. It was Slifer the Sky Dragon. Seto's eyes lit up as he laid eyes on the second Egyptian god card. This meant Marik had Obelisk the Tormentor. Odeon had 4 cards in his hand, bringing Slifer's attack to 4,000. Slifer's attack sent ripples in the sky as it devastated Bakura. Okay, at this point some of you are wondering how Odeon can control Slifer. He doesn't have ties to the ancient Egyptian past. Well, how do you know? Odeon was dropped off as a baby and was raised by the Ishtar family, so we don't actually know his descendants or where he came from. So for this what if, he does have a connection to ancient Egypt and he can control Slifer the Sky Dragon. So anyway, where were we?
Soon I shall control the world's greatest power!
Now that the semi-finals were concluded, we were left with 4 finalists. Ishizu holding the Winged Dragon of Ra, Marik with the Obelisk the Tormentor, and Odeon with Slifer the Sky Dragon. Seto was the only contestant without an Egyptian god card. The blimp landed on a duel tower, a distant island surrounded by rubble. At the top of the tower was where the finals were going to be held, and after a random decider, the semi-finals were decided. It was Ishizu versus Odeon and Seto Kaiba versus Marik. Seto thought this was perfect. Dueling Marik would not only give him the chance to face Obelisk, but Marik also had the last piece of the Millennium Puzzle he needed in order to attain Ra from Ishizu. However, first up was Ishizu versus Odeon, the Winged Dragon of Ra versus Slifer the Sky Dragon. But to Seto's disappointment, the first thing Odeon did whilst facing Ishizu was put his hand over his deck. Odeon had surrendered his match. This frustrated Seto. He wanted to see more of the gods so he could analyze their strengths and weaknesses. However, according to the rules, Odeon gave Ishizu his copy of Slifer the Sky Dragon and his piece of the puzzle. Now Ishizu had 2 pieces of the Millennium Puzzle and both the gods Ra and Slifer. Next up was Seto versus Marik. As Seto walked towards the stage, he was stopped by Ishizu, who reminded Seto about their deal. She once again showed the Winged Dragon of Ra to Seto and told him it will be his. All he had to do was beat her little brother and retrieve the last piece of the puzzle. Seto told her that he didn't need reminding and that all the god cards will belong to him very soon. Seto and Marik faced each other. Seto had already acknowledged Marik's skills, so he knew this duel was going to be tough. Also, Marik had Obelisk the Tormentor, one of the 3 Egyptian god cards. As the duel started, Marik seemed more interested in trying to talk to Seto. He warned Seto that whatever Ishizu had promised him was not to be trusted. Seto already had his suspicions about Ishizu, however he didn't really care as long as he ended up with the Winged Dragon of Ra. As the duel began, Seto took an early lead with his powerful monsters, with Marik on the back foot. However, Marik activated the jam breeding machine, which meant that after every turn, Marik would get 1 jam token. And eventually he had enough tokens to sacrifice all 3 to summon Obelisk the Tormentor.
Behold, the Egyptian god card I won from Kaiba!
Seto had never seen something this intimidating. It radiated power. Seto was in awe. Marik smiled in a friendly manner and told Seto that he knew that this would get his attention and that Seto must listen to him or the entire world could be in danger. Seto didn't respond, however he didn't cut Marik off either, so Marik continued. Marik told him not to trust his sister. You see, Marik's mother and father struggled to have a son in order to pass on the Ishtar legacy, as well as the Millennium items which they were responsible for. However, one day her mother was pregnant and gave birth to a baby girl called Ishizu.
She's beautiful, and her name shall be Ishizu.
Finally, after all these years, a child of our own. All we need now is a boy.
But it was tradition for the eldest son of the family to undergo the Tomb Keeper's initiation. However, they never had any more children, so it was decided that Ishizu would undergo the Tomb Keeper's ritual, and on her 10th birthday, Ishizu had the procedure done to her, which made her resent her family and the pharaoh. Odeon was a slave which their family had bought to swear loyalty to protect Ishizu, as she was now entrusted with the pharaoh's secret. Marik was born into the family not long afterwards, and the Ishtar family cursed their luck. Due to this, Marik had a miserable childhood, with his sister Ishizu locking herself away. However, one fateful night, Ishizu acted on her anger and took revenge on her parents. She has sent both of them to the Shadow Realm using the powers of the Millennium Necklace. In this storyline, Ishizu didn't develop a split personality like Marik. It was the years of bitterness and hate towards her parents and circumstances. She was instantly disliked by her parents for being a girl her entire life, the unwanted child, and then they scarred her for life in a ceremony which felt like hell on earth. Ishizu became twisted and angry. Now that her parents were dealt with, her remaining anger was aimed at the pharaoh, as it was his fault that they had to live this way, and she vowed to take revenge by stealing all the pieces of the puzzle and obtaining the pharaoh's power for herself. Once she was done with the parents, she searched for the puzzle pieces and her little brother to ensure that there were no witnesses. However, the puzzle pieces were gone, and so was Marik. Odeon, without alerting Ishizu, had warned Marik of what Ishizu had done and given Marik the pieces of the puzzle and told him to run. Odeon cared about Ishizu and vowed to stay by her side, but knew that if she got her hands on the Millennium Puzzle, there would be no telling to what damage she could do. Marik, who was still a young child in tears, ran away the best he could. However, he stumbled and dropped 3 pieces of the puzzle, which was later found by Ishizu. Over the years, as he grew older, Marik did the best to gain followers and thwart his sister. He even managed to get his hands on Obelisk the Tormentor, but Ishizu's power was too great to face head on, which is why when Marik heard that Ishizu was entering Battle City, he decided to enter and face her once and for all. His goal was to collect all the pieces of the Millennium Puzzle and find its rightful owner, which would then fulfill the Ishtar duties.
Carry on explaining your lame thing.
It's not lame, Bakura. It's lame man.
As soon as Marik was done talking, Seto asked him if he was done wasting his time. Seto wasn't going to be distracted at a crucial time like this, and whilst Marik had been talking, Seto had used the opportunity to use his computer to analyze the effects of Obelisk the Tormentor, and he realized there was only one combination in his deck that could have a chance at defeating Obelisk. Seto just had to draw it. And he did.
Good thing I'm Seto Kaiba, or that might have actually hurt me.
It was polymerization, which he used to summon the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. The Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon had 4,500 attack, which was 500 more than Obelisk. However, any attack at Obelisk was useless. Marik simply activated Negate Attack, cancelling it out. Marik was well versed in protecting his monsters, even if that monster was a god. Seto ended his turn by setting 2 cards face down. On Marik's turn, he sighs. He was really hoping to get Kaiba on his side. However, it seems he would have to do this all alone. Marik accessed Obelisk's ability by tributing 2 monsters, raising Obelisk's attack to infinity. However, Kaiba remained calm, which struck Marik as odd, since as soon as Marik attacks the Ultimate Dragon with Fist of Fate, Seto was about to lose. However, Kaiba activated a trap card called Ring of Destruction, but Marik only laughed, as a measly trap card like that would never affect a god. However, Kaiba smiled. He wasn't targeting Obelisk, he was targeting his own Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. When Ring of Destruction destroys a monster, each player loses life points equal to its attack, meaning both Marik and Seto would take 4,500 damage straight to their life points, meaning it would be a draw. But Kaiba then activated his second face down, Ring of Defense, which protected Seto Kaiba from any damage, which meant Marik took the full brunt of Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon's attack, and Seto Kaiba was victorious. Marik lay on the ground, defeated. However, he slowly removed Obelisk from his deck and the last piece of the Millennium Puzzle hidden in his jacket and offered them to Seto. As he did so, he looked Seto in his eyes and pleaded with him not to give it to his sister. Marik told Seto that he could sense good inside of him. Seto took Obelisk and the piece of the puzzle and walked away. The Battle City Finals consisted of Seto Kaiba versus Ishizu. Both duelists slowly walked over to each other, ready to shuffle their decks.
I don't even need to look at my cards while I shuffle them, Pharaoh.
Neither do I, Marik. I'm so good at this.
Ishizu looked at Kaiba. A deal is a deal. She took out Ra and Slifer from her deck and presented it to Seto Kaiba. Something seemed off. It wasn't Marik's words that got to him in the moment, it was his own instincts. As much as he wanted the cards, he wasn't sure if receiving them in this manner was the right way to do this. He was Seto Kaiba. He had worked and earned everything up until this point, and that wasn't gonna change now. Plus, it was the finals of his own tournament, which was going to be broadcasted to the entire world, and this wasn't going to be how he wins this. Ishizu saw the doubt in Seto's eyes and reassured him that the Millennium Necklace had foreseen that Seto would be giving her all the pieces of the puzzle one way or another. At least this way he receives the god cards as he desires. However, Seto grunted and said, "We'll see about that." And then Seto casually walked towards his corner. Not only did Ishizu see into the future with the Millennium Necklace, she also possessed not one, but two Egyptian god cards, one of them being the Winged Dragon of Ra. As the duel began, Ishizu told Seto that he's making a big mistake, and by the time this duel ends, he'll have nothing. She had foreseen it. Before the duel began, Ishizu told him that this would be a shadow game, nothing like he had ever experienced before.
Enough with the Millennium items. I don't believe in that nonsense. Is that clear?
Seto, unlike other ordinary duelists, had an ancient past, so the heavy aura of a shadow game had little effect on him. However, on Seto's right, a body appeared, shackled next to him. It was Mokuba, his little brother. Somehow he had moved from the spectator stand and now was on the duel stage next to him. Ishizu also had someone next to her, and it was Odeon. Ishizu explained that as they took damage, it wouldn't be them that suffers, but the people closest to them that will feel the pain. Seto was furious. Ishizu, in my opinion, was the most dangerous kind of villain. She was calm and calculated, and with the Millennium Necklace, it was almost impossible to surprise her. Imagine the person you hate the most being 2 or 3 steps ahead of you at all times. The duel started. Ishizu used her Millennium Necklace to predict every one of Kaiba's moves.
Make your move.
When I'm ready.
You will pick Virus Cannon. Take a look. You have chosen Virus Cannon, correct? I'll take your silence as a yes.
Now, due to this, Kaiba was on the back foot. However, he had a strategy. He activated Lullaby of Obedience. This card allowed him to choose one monster in the opponent's deck and add it to his hand. However, Kaiba wasn't stupid. He could have easily chosen the Winged Dragon of Ra. However, from previous duels, he had learned that Ishizu could have discarded Ra at any time. So Kaiba chose
Slifer, the Sky Dragon.
Ishizu had already taken Slifer out of her deck before Seto chose Slifer and gave it to him. Ishizu could see through all his plays. However, Seto now possessing Slifer and Obelisk in his deck, he was feeling a lot more confident. He uses XYZ Dragon Cannon as tribute fodder to summon Slifer the Sky Dragon. However, the moment was short-lived as it was shredded by Ra's Phoenix mode. Ishizu then proceeded to add the Winged Dragon of Ra from the graveyard to her hand with Monster Reincarnation and then summon the Mighty Beast. However, when it hit the board, it was a giant Sophia. However, Ishizu began the ancient chant, which unlocked Ra from the orb.
Almighty protector of the sun and sky, I beg of thee, please heed my cry.
The ancient chant. He knows it.
Transform thyself from orb of light and bring me victory in this fight.
Kaiba had a card specifically to counter Ra, which was the Fiend Sanctuary spell card, which summons a Fiend token, and any damage done to the token would reflect back at Ishizu's life points. However, the price to keep it on the field was heavy, and it would drain 1,000 of Seto's life points per turn, but it managed to stall Ishizu. Frustration started to set in. The Winged Dragon of Ra was just too powerful. However, just at that moment, the Millennium Rod at his hips started to shine in response to Seto's emotions. The Millennium Rod showed him visions of the past. However, not only did it show him the mighty Blue Eyes White Dragon, it showed him sat on the throne with the Millennium Puzzle around his neck, with the 3 Egyptian god cards at his command.
Crazy! I've never felt anything like this before. Is this another one of Ishizu's tricks? Why are these visions flashing before my eyes?
For the first time, Ishizu seemed to break composure, as she hadn't expected the Millennium Rod to be under Seto's control. Ishizu tried to see into Seto's future to ensure that the future still showed her being victorious. However, she was unable to see any visions. It seemed to be cloudy, as if Seto's future was no longer written. Seto was able to make up his own destiny.
Hear me now! I won't be controlled! I decide my future!
Everything became clear for Seto. He sensed an incredible energy coming from his next drawer, and without even looking at it, he sacrificed 3 monsters in order to summon Obelisk the Tormentor. He then tributed 2 of his monsters in order to boost Obelisk's attack to infinite strength. This wasn't what Ishizu had foreseen. Seto wasn't meant to draw Obelisk at this point in the duel. Seto had made the impossible possible.
Do my eyes deceive me? How did Kaiba make the impossible possible?
Ra was destroyed, and with Ra went the rest of Ishizu's life points. The first thing Seto did was ensure Mokuba was okay, but then went to collect the winged dragon of Ra. Ishizu was still in shock. However, Odeon gave Seto the remaining 2 pieces of the puzzle, and Odeon told Seto that he believed the Millennium Puzzle belonged to him. So Seto now had all 3 Egyptian god cards and all the pieces of the Millennium Puzzle. However, at this exact moment, the central piece of the Millennium Puzzle, which was around his neck, showed him a vision.
And now I leave you this, as proof of your right to the throne. Please preserve my father's dream, and maintain peace in Egypt.
Yes, my king.
Guys, thank you so much for all the support and love you have all shown me for these videos. Honestly, I have so much fun making these and seeing all your comments. I will be doing a community poll soon to see which video you guys want to see next, so stay tuned for that. Until next time, guys.